Micah chapter 4, verse 1. And in the latter days it shall be that the mountain of the house of Yahweh is established on the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and peoples shall flow to it. So obviously referring mainly to Sion, the mountain of Yahweh. Also important how it says the latter days, confirming what we've been saying regarding how Micah is talking for the end times. In Hebrew, Behaya Beacharit Hayamim, the last days. And it will be during the last days that the mountain of the house of Yahweh will stand. So it shall be that the mountain of the house of Yahweh is established on the top of the mountains, meaning it will be the head of all the nations. The people, remember how the scripture talks about the house of Jacob, the house of Yosef, is not referring to the building where they lived, is referring to their family. So although when it comes to the literal, the mountain is Sion, the 144,000 will be his family, just like the bride becomes family once she marries the son. So the 144,000 will lead the whole world, all the nations, wherever nations will remain, they will follow. And in the latter days, it shall be that the mountain of the house of Yahweh, the kingdom, we could say the kingdom of the family of Yahweh. Remember also how we see in Daniel 2, it says 35, then the iron, the clay, the bronze. Well, let me go back a little bit. You were looking on until a stone. Remember, Mashiach is the cornerstone. But here it's talking about the very end times. Therefore, when Mashiach sends his messenger, Michael, who comes, we could say also as a stone in the sense that will be used to build. Remember, stones, how they are connected to children as well. For in Hebrew, banim is children, abanim, stones. That's why he said that he could bring banim from the abanim, right? He could bring children from the stones, children of Abraham. So you were looking until a stone was cut out without hands. Somebody whom Yahweh prepares, not prepared by men, not by schools of this reality, but by Yahweh himself, cut out without hands. And it's mode the image, which represents the kingdoms of the earth, just like those kingdoms have worshipped images instead of Yahweh. And it's smote the image on its feet of iron and clay. The feet of the image will be the last kingdom, the New World Order. That's why they will be defeated. Right? So its feet of iron and clay, and broke them in pieces. So he broke them in pieces. Then the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold, meaning the New World Order, the Greek Empire. The iron has to do with Rome, mixed with clay, New World Order. The bronze is the Greek Empire, silver, the Persian Empire, and the gold, the Babylonian Empire, were crushed together and became like chaff from the summer threshing floors. And the wind took them away so that no trace of them was found. And this is the part I want to see. And the stone that smote the image became a gray mountain and filled all the earth. The stone starts like one person, but then becomes 144,000. And that is the temple, which is the body of Mashiach. So Yahweh, through the 144,000, will destroy the kingdoms of this earth, and it will become a great mountain, a great kingdom that will fill all the earth, will rule over every nation. So going back to Micah, it says, and in the latter days it shall be that the mountain of the house of Yahweh, like I said, the house of Yahweh, not only, I mean, remember that Enoch confirms that Yahushua would be the temple, and he does it by saying that on the fifth week, the second temple would be built unto eternity. But we know that the second temple was destroyed in the year 70. But 40 years before that, when they killed Mashiach, days before he was killed, he said, destroy the temple and I will raise it up in 3 days. So he was talking about his body as being the true temple. So through the death and resurrection of Mashiach, Yahweh made a change from the example, the model, which was the temple of stone. And it finally became the temple of flesh, Yahushua, as through the resurrection. So there was a transition from stone to flesh. Like also Yahweh said, I will make the hearts which are like stone. I will take them away and give you a heart of flesh, right? He would change our hearts from stone to flesh, just like he turned the temple from stone to flesh when Mashiach resurrected. So that's how Hanok said that temple will go unto eternity, because Mashiach came to bring that eternity through resurrection. So my point is that once Mashiach came, the temple is his body. So when we read the prophets after Mashiach, not the prophets that came after Mashiach, but the prophets of the past, we read them after Mashiach has come. We need to read with the spiritual lens, meaning when we see temple, we must understand it's talking about the body, and so on and so forth. So just like I mentioned, the mountain, his kingdom, the house, his body, and his body are the 144,000, his family. Just like when one would say the house of Jacob, the house of Yosef. He was talking about the family, not the building, like I said. So in the latter days, it shall be that the mountain of the house of Yahweh, which in the literal would be the temple on top of the mountain, Sion. But spiritually, remember that the 144,000 will gather on Mount Sion once they are harvested. Revelation 14. Looked, and I saw a lamb standing on Mount Sion, and with him 144,000, having his father's name and his name. As you can see, this that other text reads his name and his father's name written upon their foreheads. That's why that is the helmet, like I mentioned earlier. So, and in the latter days it shall be that the mountain of the house of Yahweh is established on top of the mountains and shall be exalted above the hills. So on top of any nation and people or town, and peoples shall flow to it. As we see in other prophecies, that the nation will have to celebrate Sukkot, what they call the Feast of Tabernacles. They will have to celebrate Sukkot because that will be the time when they will go after the many and kill them, and the few will listen and therefore be saved. And many nations shall come and say, come and let us go up to the mountain of Yahweh, to the house of the Elohim of Jacob, and let him teach us his ways, and let us walk in his paths. For out of Zion comes forth the Torah, and the word of Yahweh from Jerusalem. Says Isaiah 2:3. Let me go and check it out real quick. Verse 3. And many people shall come and say, come and let us go up to the mountain of Yahweh, to the house of the Elohim of Jacob, and let him teach us his ways, and let us walk in his paths. His ways, his paths, first and last, wisdom, understanding. For out of Zion comes forth the Torah, written by Moshe, so the witness like Moshe. And the word of Yahweh, which is Yahushua, from Jerusalem, the teaching of Shalom. For he, the word of Yahweh, Yahushua, gave us the Shalom that surpasses all understanding. And Zion, connected to the kingdom and therefore to the witness like Moshe, just like we're seeing here, which is pretty much the same verse. And many nations shall come and say, come and let us go up to the mountain of Yahweh, the kingdom of Yahweh, to the house of the Elohim of Jacob, to Mashiach, and let him teach us his ways, Yahushua, and let us walk in his paths, the last. For out of Zion comes forth the Torah, witness like Moshe, and the word of Yahweh from Jerusalem, Yahushua, HaMashiach. So pretty much last and first, first and last, last and first. And he shall judge among many peoples. And he shall judge among many peoples, and reprove strong nations afar off. They shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up a sword against nation, neither teach battle anymore. Which is also prophesied in Isaiah regarding how during the millennium, the Shabbat, which is the one referring to here, which fits perfectly what we were seeing in the previous chapter. Remember how we mentioned, which took us to Thessalonians, regarding the time when they will say peace and safety, and then destruction comes upon them. And we saw how they won't be heard and they will be destroyed. I mean, hurt, right? Not hurt. So they will go through all that during the last 7 plagues, and then comes the time of shalom, of peace on earth, and that is what is referring to here, when now Yahweh will be ruling through the chosen ones. So that's why it says here, and he shall judge among many peoples and reprove strong nations afar off. They shall beat their swords into plowshares. So whatever all the metals that they have used to kill, all the metals that they have used for war, they will turn them into tools to bring life. Just like the tools to work the land in order to bring fruit, to give food to the people. So they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither teach battle anymore. Interesting that one would use a sword to destroy a man, to cut or pierce. A plowshare pretty much is to cut or pierce the land. And as we know, Adam was made from the Adamah. So it's like turning the weapons from the people to the land in order to give life like it should have been. And their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up a sword against nation, neither teach battle anymore. There won't be war anymore forever. There will be only one more, but that I don't think that should be called a war. That's when Gog and Magog get, after 1,000 years, they get together and they come against us. But Yahweh will stop them with fire from the heavens, so we won't have to do anything. But that will be the only time when there will be something close to a war at the end of the 1,000 years. But for eternity, now nations won't fight each other because we will be in control. Thankfully, obviously, Yahweh will be in control, giving us the wisdom, knowledge, judgment to rule over the earth. And therefore there will be no war, because that is not how we deal with things. We will have shalom, and we will teach it to the nations, and everybody will act according to what Yahweh says, and therefore everybody will get along. Plus, the enemy won't be tempting anybody for power. The enemy won't be tempting in any way. And when it comes to the few and the many, won't have the inclination to evil, so that will help us to rule over the nations without them destroying each other. For all the peoples walk, listen to this. And this is talking about this time, right? But each one shall sit under, oh no, I went ahead, let me see. Yeah. But each one shall sit under his vine and under his fig tree. Once again, first and last. And also obviously referring to the fact that everybody will have their own property. They will enjoy having land and having abundance. Many times the enemy, the system, brings down the economy to make people get desperate and then have an excuse for war and other things. So in that time, none of that will happen. So everybody will have their own share. Also, vine, remember, it connects with Israel, the fig tree with Yahudah. That's why Yahushua cursed a fig tree, because he came to his people and he was rejected by his people. He said, I am the true vine. So anybody who is connected to Mashiach is a true Israelite. Also, the vine and the fig tree connect with the tree of life and the tree of knowledge. So each one shall sit under his vine and under his fig tree, with no one to make them afraid. There will be no enemy. Satan will no longer be there, and there will be nobody evil doing evil to their neighbor. So, for the mouth of Yahweh of hosts has spoken. For the mouth of Yahweh of hosts has spoken. For all the peoples walk, each one in the name of his mighty one. This is a beautiful and amazing verse, because that is what we see nowadays. For all the peoples walk, each one in the name of his mighty one. Right? God, Jesus, Buddha, Mary, Krishna, etc. All the peoples walk, each one in the name of his mighty one. But we walk in the name of Yahweh, our Elohim, forever and ever. And I'll go to Zechariah 10:12. And I shall make them mighty in Yahweh. Who? The 144,000. And I shall make them mighty in Yahweh, so that they walk up and down in his name, declares Yahweh. Those whom he will gather, pretty much. So another, I'll read it again because it is very important. For all the peoples walk, each one in the name of his mighty one. They all walk in the name of God, the mighty one of this world. But we walk in the name of Yahweh, our Elohim, forever and ever. And this is important because not only is mentioned in the name of Yahweh, but is mentioning the fact that we must walk. Like I said, not sit still and wait for the rapture, but continue walking, learning, growing. And not only that, that we walk obviously through the way of Yahweh. So we walk in the name of Yahweh is pretty much saying we follow Yahweh through Yahushua forever and ever. In that day, declares Yahweh, I gather the lame and I bring together the outcast and those whom I have afflicted. Right? We had to go through affliction during this time, the time of this reality, because of our sin in Adam, and then individual sins that each of us committed. And obviously, as a people that we are one. So That's why the whole, well, all of the people were dispersed across the four corners of the earth and had to go through affliction one way or another. But now Yahweh will gather us. He will bring us together. In that day, declares Yahweh, I gather the lame and I bring together the outcasts and those whom I have afflicted, which also obviously, because I was talking about in the general sense of whole history, the affliction that Israel had to go through, but also is referring to the many, right? Who, because of the teaching that they were given, they are lame. And they will be outcasts in the sense that they won't be gathered during the harvest as the wheat. They will have to go to the winepress of the wrath as the grapes, where they will be afflicted. So they will be afflicted by rejecting the mark of the beast and being killed, but then Yahweh will gather them and bring them together. And I shall make the lame a remnant. Well, that confirming what I was mentioning the first time, right? Because even though Israel has been afflicted and dispersed across the four corners of the earth, Yahweh still will save a remnant. And I shall make the lame a remnant and the outcast a strong nation. There you go. The few and the many. Matter of fact, yeah, it's clear now that I see this verse, seeing the previous one. I'll say it again. In that day, declares Yahweh, I gathered the lame, the chosen few. Remember also, we go to the book of Revelation, chapter 3, when it speaks to the congregation of Philadelphia, which represents the few. I know your works. See, I have set before you an open door, and no one is able to shut it. That you have little power, yet have guarded my word and have not denied my name. That little power is pretty much the fact that because of the falsehood in which we were born and whatever errors or sins we have committed, we became lame in thought, understanding. And yeah, lame, we use lame in another sense, but you know what I mean. So yeah, we were lame, that's for sure. So now Yahweh is saying, I gathered the lame like the wheat, those who had little strength, but he will give all the strength in the world. I gathered the lame and another group. I bring together the outcast and those whom I have afflicted. So those who have to go through death because they were outcast by not being the few chosen, he will bring them together after resurrection. And Luke also is like the wheat and the grapes of Revelation 14. So then here he confirms it. And I shall make the lame a remnant and the outcast a strong nation, the few and the many. The remnant who will be gathered without experiencing death to rule, and the outcast who will be resurrected to be the nation under the few. And Yahweh shall reign over them in Mount Sion from now on and forever. Right? This now on is in that day. I want to make that clear. In that day, when this happens, then from then on and forever, Yahweh shall reign over the Mount Sion. So Yahweh shall reign over the 144,000, and the 144,000 will rule over the strong nation, and the strong nation will rule over the nations. And you, O tower of the flock, stronghold of the daughter of Sion, it shall come to you, the former rule shall come, the reign of the daughter of your, and you, O tower of the flock. Let me see that in Hebrew, verse 8. Ve'ata migdal eder. And you, tower of the flock. And you, O tower of the flock, stronghold of the daughter of Sion. It shall come to you. The former rule shall come, the reign of the daughter of Jerusalem. Let me see that verse 8 here real quick. And you, O tower of the flock, the stronghold of the daughter of Zion, to you shall it come, even the former dominion shall come, the kingdom of the daughter of Jerusalem. It shall come to you, the former rule shall come, as in the time when David was ruling, the reign of the daughter of Jerusalem. Now, why, I'm not going to select it. Now, why do you cry aloud? Now, why do you cry aloud? Is there no sovereign in you? Has your counselor perished? For pain has gripped you like a woman in labor. Once again, a woman in labor. Remember that always connects with the end times, because just like the woman goes in labor, how the pain gets closer and closer from each other, the contractions, and stronger until the time of birth. The same with the end times. We've been seeing it from the time we were born, how the pains have been getting closer and closer. And I'm saying disasters, natural disasters, the economy, the gap between the rich and the poor, etc., has been getting more and more common and greater. So Yahweh is promising that the rule shall come, the dominion shall come, yet people are crying out loud. Why? Because lack of faith, amongst other things. And obviously because it hasn't been fulfilled yet, that's the main thing. But if we have faith that this will happen, and we are in Yahweh, who is eternal, and through the Ruach we receive patience. So now, why do you cry aloud? Is there no sovereign in you? Has your counselor perished? As we know, Yahweh is our sovereign and our counselor. First and last, he came to leave for us power, authority, sovereignty. And the last comes as the wonderful counselor, as it prophesies in the book of Yeshayahu, right, in Isaiah. When Yahweh speaks about the last, he mentions counsel. For a child is born unto us. There's another verse where a virgin gives birth, and that obviously refers to Yahushua HaMashiach, right, when Yeshayahu speaks of Emmanuel. But then in Yeshayahu 9, he talks about the last, yet most people, since they are not taught about first and last, they just continue connecting it with the first. But if you read carefully, you'll see that it doesn't refer to the first. Mainly the context, but I'll just read this verse. For a child is born unto us, a son is given unto us, and the rule is on his shoulder. Like he mentioned here. For the former rule shall come, the reign of the daughter of Jerusalem. It shall come to you, O tower of the flock, right? The few are the flock, the daughter of Zion. The former rule shall come. So Yeshayahu says, for a child is born unto us, a son is given unto us. Funny that it says child and then son, as in mentioning the fact that it is the second. And also, and I say that because it mentions two terms for the same. And also it doesn't mention anything regarding the mother as a virgin, so that would mean it's a regular mother or regular birth, right? For a child is born unto us, a son is given unto us, and the rule is on his shoulder, and his name is called Wonder, Counselor. Another translation has Wonderful Counselor. Either way is fine, right? Wonder, Counselor, Strong Mighty One, Father of Eternity or Continuity, Prince of Peace. This is one of the keys, because Yahushua came as the Son. He said he came to make brethren. The last comes as the father. And he will continue what the first started. And unto eternity. He will be a prince of peace. Like he was saying here, there will be no war no more. They won't fight anymore. Where was it? Well, yeah. Nation shall not lift up its sword against nation, neither teach battle anymore. Because now the Prince of Peace will be ruling. Mashiach came as a Kohen, as a priest. The last comes as a prince. The first came as a son. The last comes as a father. And like I said, the counselor connects with the last, just like he mentioned here. Is there no sovereign in you? Has your counselor perished? Both are Yahweh, who separates in first and last. He who came to bring sovereignty, and the last who comes to bring counsel. Is there no sovereign in you? Yahushua promised that he will be with us forever, and he is within us. So he is in us through his Ruach. And the last still has to go through death. Has your counselor perished? And once again, I repeat, is Yahweh saying a rhetorical question? He has not. You can always ask. You can always come to Yahweh. So the question is, now why do you cry aloud? For pain has gripped you like a woman in labor. Interestingly enough, once the counselor, who is the last, is killed, then the pain begins. Because his resurrection will be his birth, spiritually speaking, when he gets the new body and is united with the first. And the few have to flee to the mountains, and the many will have to die. And the rest of the world will go through a lot of pain, for pain has gripped you like a woman in labor. But be in pain and deliver, O daughter of Zion. Be in pain and deliver, O daughter of Zion. Right now we are in the 6th month, which is the month of the Virgin. Therefore, the month of the daughter of Zion. And just for that, let me go to Revelation 12. And a great sign was seen in the heaven, a woman clad with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. And being pregnant, she cried out in labor and in pain to give birth. So listen to that. Being pregnant, she cried out in labor and in pain to give birth. Yahweh saying here, be in pain and deliver, O daughter of Zion. Then it says, and another sign was seen in the heaven, and see a great fiery red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on his heads. And his tail draws a third of the stars of the heaven and throws them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth to devour her child, the child that is born, as we just saw in Isaiah 9, to devour her child as soon as he was born. And she bore a male child who was to shepherd all nations, not just Israel. For Yahushua the first came for his people, for the Israelites. Now the last comes for the rest of the nations whom have now heard of Yahushua the first by this time. Who was to shepherd all nations with a rod of iron. For he comes as a Roman with strength and severity, geburah, judgment. And her child was cut away to Elohim and to his throne, because he comes as a king. And the woman fled into the wilderness. That is, like I said, after the death and resurrection of the last, the few have to flee to the mountains, or wilderness in this case, where she has a place prepared for Elohim to be nourished there 1,260 days, the following 3.5 years. And there came to be fighting in the heaven, etc., etc. So going back to Micah, be in pain and deliver, O daughter of Zion, like a woman in labor. For now you are to leave the city, and you shall dwell in the field. Isn't that amazing? For now you have to leave the city. So give birth to the last. Now you have to leave, flee to the wilderness. Is that understood? I hope. So you see how it all goes together. It's all talking about the same moment. Be in pain and deliver, O daughter of Zion, like a woman in labor. For now you are to leave the city, and you shall dwell in the field. That time will be during Sukkot, the 15th of the 7th month, 1 day and a half after the resurrection or birth of the last. And you shall go to Babel. There you shall be delivered. There Yahweh shall redeem you from the hand of your enemies. Remember that, well, he's making reference and using what happened in the past to represent what will happen in the future. For there was a time when Yahweh told the prophets, tell Israel to be willing to go with the Babylonians, because if they're not, they will be killed. Those who didn't listen to the prophet were killed, and those who listened went and had a place to stay, and they were there for 70 years, rectifying the sin of the previous 490. So, and you shall go to Babel, there you shall be delivered. There Yahweh shall redeem you from the hand of your enemies. In this case, remember, Babel means confusion. When the few flee, they will be tested with confusion, because they will be thinking many things will come to their minds. I don't even want to put any thought, but some will feel confused, not knowing where to go. Like I always say, that the point is to just leave. Whatever house, work, where people would find you, just leave. And then Yahweh will take care of the rest. As it says here, and you shall go to Babel. We could say, you shall go to confusion, or you shall go confused. There you shall be delivered. Where? Wherever you go. There Yahweh shall redeem you from the hand of your enemies, because the enemies will go to the work and to the house, as Matthew 24, Mark 13, and Luke 17 says. Shall redeem you from the hand of your enemies. Also, like I said, Israel was in Babel for 70 years, and then they were redeemed from Babel through the Persian Empire, the Persians and the Medes, who represent the few and the many. Persia means splendid, like the few, and Medes means middle, like the many are in the middle between the few and the nations. So the Persians and the Medes conquered. Cyrus conquered Babylon. Cyrus, who in Isaiah 45 is called his Messiah. So he represents the last who would come and conquer Babel, the confusion of the world. And just like Israel spent 70 years in Babel, the chosen few will spend 7 days in the wilderness. And in confusion, I say quote unquote, right, in the sense of how the enemy will try to use confusion to bring the people down, yet they will be tested through it, and then they will be delivered from it. And you shall go to Babel, there you shall be delivered, there Yahweh shall redeem you from the hand of your enemies. And now many nations shall be gathered against you. Right? When the serpent is going after the few who fled, well, it will go after the many, but only the few will be fleeing and being saved. And now many nations shall be gathered against you, who are saying, let her be defiled, and let our eyes look upon Zion. Let her be defiled, and let our eyes look upon Zion. So the nations will gather to go after the few, meaning the armies of the nations, of course, used by the beast. But also, As we know, the two witnesses will preach for 1,260 days, and after their death, the Gentiles will tread upon the set apart city. Let me go to Revelation 11. But cast out the court which is outside the dwelling place, and do not measure it, for it has been given to the nations, and they shall trample the set apart city under foot for 42 months. They shall trample the set apart city under foot for 42 months. And now many nations shall be gathered against you, who are saying, let her be defiled, and let our eyes look upon Sion. After the death of the two witnesses, they will be given 42 months, 1,260 days, which are the same 1,260 days that the congregation will be in the prepared place mentioned in Revelation 12. But they do not know the thoughts of Yahweh, nor do they understand his counsel. But they do not know the thoughts of Yahweh, nor do they understand his counsel. This is important. We just saw the counselor, right? And like Yahweh asked them, has your counselor perished? Right here, has your counselor perished? So now it mentions it again. But they do not know the thoughts of Yahweh, nor they understand his counsel. So they do not know Yahushua, who reveals the thoughts of Yahweh, nor do they understand the last, who brings the doctrine. And interesting, as you guys know, the Ruach is pretty much the thought of Yahweh, which manifests first as wisdom, that being Yahushua. Second, as understanding, that being the last, his counsel. Also, nor do they understand his counsel is like he comes to preach, yet nobody understands. Well, when I say nobody, I mean the nations, the people, because those who do understand are one with him. So nobody else understands. Nor do they understand his counsel. So that means that they hear the counsel, yet they don't understand it. For he has gathered them like sheaves to the threshing floor. Meaning also like the grapes in the winepress of the wrath. For he has gathered them like sheaves to the threshing floor. Arise and thresh, O daughter of Sion. Listen to this. For I make your horn iron. I make your horn iron, and we just saw Revelation 12. And she bore a male child who was to shepherd all nations with a rod of iron. And her child was cut away to Elohim and to his throne. So Yahweh is promising here, for I make your horn iron and your hooves bronze. The two witnesses as horn and hooves, as the authority, the crown, the one on top, and the one on the bottom, but in the meaning, in the sense of, you know how the feet represent the good news, like the fact that we can move to take the good news to other nations, to other people. Just like the witness, like Moshe, would be on the throne, and he would send Eliyahu to do his bit, right? To do what he needs to do. So Eliyahu goes with the word that Yahweh puts in the last, who is the voice. So the last, as the voice of the king, speaks, and Eliyahu does. In the same way as Yahweh remains on the throne as the highest, and he sent Yahushua, his son. Eliyahu is the spiritual son of the last, but he comes with iron, right? The 144,000 are all sons of the last, but I mean the one that needs to be sacrificed, just like Yitzhak as the son of Abraham. And remember what I mentioned regarding Abraham being called when he was 75, meaning in the year 2023 from Adam. So arise and thresh, O daughter of Sion. That is when the last, when the many will be thrown in the winepress. For I make your horn. Horn, remember, I repeat, represents authority, represents the crown. In fact, the word crown comes from the word horn, keren. See, keren, and that's where we got crown. Keren, crown. So the horns of an animal are its crown, and that's why a crown has horns, right? So I make your horn, so meaning your crown, your authority, your leader, as iron, as Rome, and your hooves bronze, like Rome and Greece, the Greek Empire. Just like we were born in the apostasy that came from the Greek Empire and from the Roman Empire, bronze and iron, respectively. And both the two witnesses would have been in the apostasy. So arise and thresh, O daughter of Zion, for I make your horn iron and your hooves bronze. And you shall beat many peoples into pieces, and I shall seclude their gain to Yahweh. And I shall seclude the gain to Yahweh. And you shall beat many peoples into pieces, and I shall seclude their gain to Yahweh. This is interesting. It says, I, Micah, as the prophet, as Michael, saying, I shall seclude their gain to Yahweh, the gain of the peoples who were turned into pieces by the daughter of Zion, the 144,000. And I shall seclude their gain to Yahweh, and their wealth to the sovereign of all the earth. So the last taking everything and giving it to Yahweh and to Yahushua, the Son, the sovereign of all the earth. And well, in this case, yeah, but this is interesting as well, because you see how it says, well, here we see quotes, so that's Yahweh speaking, or the Ruach speaking through Micah, right? Arise and thresh, O daughter of Zion, for I make your horn. So that's pretty much Yahweh saying, I make your horn iron and your hooves bronze, and you shall beat many peoples into pieces, and I shall seclude their gain to Yahweh. So this is interesting because he's himself speaking, yet he says in the third person Yahweh, just like when Michael would curse or the enemy, not directly, he would say Yahweh. Let me see, let me go to Zechariah chapter chapter 3. We see that it says, and Yahweh said to Satan, Yahweh rebuke you, Satan. Yahweh who has chosen Jerusalem rebuke you. So this is Michael representing Yahweh, yet when he rebukes Satan, he doesn't do it directly. So he speaks of Yahweh in the third person, even though he himself represents Yahweh. That's why it says, and Yahweh said to Satan, Yahweh rebuke you. If there was no Michael in the middle, then Yahweh would say, I rebuke you. Right? So the point is, even though Michael represents Yahweh, he respects Yahweh so much and understands that Satan is another angel that serves Yahweh. And so he says, Yahweh, our sovereign, rebuke you. Satan, Yahweh who has chosen Jerusalem, rebuke you. So that is pretty much the same idea that was mentioned here. Yahweh is speaking through the prophet Micah, who represents Michael. So he says, I, Yahweh, make your horn iron, the last, and your hooves bronze, like I mentioned, connected with Eliyahu. And you shall beat many peoples into pieces. And you shall beat many peoples into pieces, you, daughter of Zion, the 144,000. And I, meaning Michael, meaning the last, shall seclude their gain to Yahweh. Because even though Yahweh is the one speaking, he's doing it through Micah, as doing it through Michael. And that's why it says, I shall seclude their gain to Yahweh. And it doesn't say, and I shall seclude their gain to myself, and their wealth to the sovereign of all the earth. I hope that's clear, the point there. And let me go to Jude 1:9, or Jude 9, pretty much. Yehuda. Verse 9. But Michael, the chief messenger, in contending with Hasatan when he disputed about the body of Moshe, presumed not to bring against him a blasphemous accusation, but said, Yahweh rebuke you. Exactly, my brother. This is the verse that shows how when they were fighting for the body of Moshe, because Satan accused them of killing a person, not understanding that Yahweh placed them as a judge to do that. Also to bring the body and use it as an idol and all of that we've mentioned previously. Michael doesn't bring that, as it says, he presumed not to bring against him a blasphemous accusation, but said, Yahweh rebuke you. So even though he represented Yahweh, he used the name of Yahweh in the third person to rebuke the enemy. So that's how that chapter ends.